think the majority of Primal decks not interested in this card, but maybe somewhere it's good. I don't see it either yet. I'll start with D plus. Let's go there.
Okay. Okay, let us move on to the shadow cards. We can start off with the 1-cost Brash Shorthorn. It is a 2/1 and has no text, but I don't think it needs any. If you're in an aggressive shadow deck, this seems like a pretty reasonable 1-drop.
Yeah, I don't know if it's how possible it is to make really aggressive shadow decks, but okay, it's a 2/1 for 1. We've played that in draft before. Shows up at uncommon, not common. You're not going to be seeing these all over the place.
Nope.
I'm a little nervous about how easy it is to make like a good shadow aggro deck. And if you want this, like it's not like you want to put weapons on this or do anything like that. But maybe there's decks that want it. But I feel like 2/1s for 1 have gotten worse in this format, not better. So I'm just gonna give it a D plus for now.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it C minus. Kind of optimistic, I guess. I haven't gotten a good sense of how aggressive Shadow wants to be, but I could definitely see this moving very quickly to the D range if I can't find a home for it. Fallen Oni up next. This is a 1/2 for 1 and Shadow influence and has summon the enemy player discards the top unit of their deck. I feel like this is supposed to be some sort of like counter to something like Warcry heavy strategies, which is weird.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it can also randomly take out a revenge unit that got put back in their deck, but you don't know when, and you're playing a 1/2 for 1. Yeah, I don't like this card at all.
D minus?
Sure. It's still a body at the end of the day, right?
It's true. Jack's Knife. As opposed to the knife. Jack, I love that little play on it, and it's a 1-cost Shadow influence 2/2 weapon that has summon. The wielder deals 2 damage to you. Fun fact: you put this on a lifesteal unit.
No downside.
You don't gain. Yeah, no downside. It's nice. If you're in a very aggressive shadow-based deck, this seems like a great inclusion for you. Mm-hmm. So something like you're in Stone Scar,
or Argent
aggro,
or
Argent Port.
We saw they care about weapons.
Yeah, they really do. Clearly it's narrow in its scope, but I think it's actively good in that kind of deck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can agree there. Like the decks that want it, you'll know you want it. Like this isn't a reason to move into an aggressive, caring about weapons deck. But if you're in that deck, like if you are Stone Scar weapons, if you are Argent Port weapons, this is probably one of the better weapons you can put into that deck. Again, I don't think it's a reason to move in to a weapon-based deck, but it's a really good card in those decks once you care about them. I think you need to get the units first and then get Jack's Knife in there. So this is, again, one of kind of those dual-grade cards where it's like an F in a lot of decks or like a D in a lot of decks, something like that. And in other decks, it's closer to a C plus or B minus. So.
Yeah, I would put it on C minus on average. Yeah. For those reasons, but definitely very archetype specific. Mm-hmm. Next card is actually, I have a quick question for you. Have you had a chance to play the Revenge Roaches deck yet?
I haven't because everybody else has, so I've been exploring other territory, but it's pretty sick from what I've seen.
Yeah, for those of you,
I was going to, but everybody else was doing it, and I know I'll have my fun with it soon.
Yeah, for those of you who haven't had a chance to check it out, I also encourage you to check out some of Logo Pocho's videos that he posted on this. The deck is absolutely busted in its current form. I wouldn't be surprised to see a nerf in the near future. But we have the one of the enablers to that deck, but we're talking about it for draft instead. Swear Vengeance, fast spell, 1 power, 1 shadow influence, give one of your units revenge. This feels like bad Dark Return.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Dark Return is a better top deck in most spots. This is it's like a weird combination of Dark Return and Protect or something like that. It's clearly great and constructed, but I am not sold on it in draft. Now, again, draft is a bit slower. You might have time to set up weird combos with it, but I think you can pick this up pretty late on. It's not like something you want multiples of anyways. It's not helping you win combat ever. And it's just a card that essentially replaces itself eventually with hopefully a really good card that you've been built up. But if you're using it on a bad unit, you're just getting another bad unit later on in the game when it's even worse or something like that. I don't know. It is cool on Echo units, though, as we found out.
Yes. Also, I would start this as like D plus.
Sure, that's a fine place to start. There might be fun synergies you can get eventually with this, but if you have those available, you'll know.
Talk Tick 1/1 Revenge for 1 and 1 Shadow Influence. This is too low impact for my tastes.
Yeah, haven't figured really out if there's a deck for this. I don't think there is, but there could be. Again, awesome and constructed though. But I haven't really seen it all in draft yet, and I don't know if I will anytime soon. It doesn't quite seem like there's enough to justify playing it.
D?
Yeah, let's go with D.
How about you take the next one? This is actually an interesting one.
Longshot Marksman. The cycle continues of these ultimate common cards. 2 cost 2/1 with quick draw. So hard to block. No 2/2s are getting in the way of this. Or anything with 2 health, really. And it has an ultimate. Pay 6 to give Longshot Marksman +2/+2. So it becomes a 4/3 quick draw in the mid to late game. Just a real solid card. Not great at defense. It's going to die no matter what it blocks, but can get aggressive and wears weapons really, really well. And even if it doesn't have a weapon, it can pump itself up if you've got a lot of power available and still be very difficult to block. So, yeah, sweet card here.
This is one that, relative to the other ones of this cycle that seem to be more defensive focused, this one definitely has a more aggressive tinge to it. I think I'll be happy to play as many of these as I have available to me in a shadow-based aggro deck. Mid-rangey to controlling ones, we will play 1 or 2 without too much difficulty, but it definitely has diminishing returns. Mm-hmm. But for an aggro deck, I could see this working out pretty okay.
Yeah. Like if you're in Stone Scar or Argentport, even aggressive Felon lists, this is nice. But I think you mostly want buff spells or weapons to really get this thing rolling. But again, it's fine in a pinch as just a 2-drop filler, even in defensive or control deck. So I think that ultimately puts it, I think, still just at a C plus. I don't think I can put this in the B range or anything like that. But it's good. I mean, it's a 2-drop that's relevant in the late game. I don't know. Maybe that is enough for a B minus.
No, but C+ seems fine for me as a place to start.
Yeah.
Piercing Grief is the next card. This is a 3/1 for 2 with Lifesteal Revenge in charge. If that was what the card actually said, that would be busted, and I'd be very happy to play as many copies as I could get my hands on, but it has a pretty serious downside. At the end of your turn, sacrifice Piercing Grief. This card is just too low impact in most decks. You have to be doing something busted with this in order to make it actually function in a way that's interesting. Mm-hmm. I think this card is a D. Or D minus.
Yeah, it might have some fun applications in constructed, but it's not going to do really much of anything in your average limited game. So I agree. D. Let's go with that.
Imagine destinying this off the top. You're during a board stall. It's okay, gain 3 life. My opponent just eats it. Who cares?
Yeah, sometimes it's going to be worse than Water of Life. Sometimes it'll be a lot better, but you just don't know.
Yeah. Scare is up next. This is a weird one.
Yeah, it is. It's a 2-cost uncommon fast spell, and it says swap units, attack, and health. So if your opponent has an 07 in play, it dies, because now it's a 7-0.
Yeah, man, get those Copper Hall, whatever the hell is it were.
Yeah.
Just kill them dead.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to play this. Do you want to play this card? When is it good? I mean, I guess Argentport has a couple effects where it's lower a unit's attack, and then once you lower it to 0, you could swap it and kill it, but it's okay, you killed something you don't care about anymore. You can... Yeah. I don't know, you can... How are you ever, getting, a... It's really hard to get a 1-for-1 out of this, ever. And good luck ever getting, a 2-for-1. I don't know. I don't want to play this card. Maybe I'm missing something on it, but I don't think I am.
Yeah, I don't think there's enough targets in the format that you're really interested in. Most people are playing fairly square stats within the most conventional units, turning a 2/2 into a 2/3 into a 3/2. Who cares? So yeah, until proven otherwise, I'm gonna put that as a D again.
I'm gonna go F. I don't.
I'm gonna go F.
I don't
Okay.
see when I ever want to play it. I mean, like I said, like you said, maybe I'll change the grade, but for now, it's an F until I see some sort of application for it.
So we have a continuation of this pretty unimpressive series of cards. We have Threaten, which is a fast spell that gives one of your units +2 attack. This is a common. This is just like ultra worse rapid shot.
Yeah, this is good if your unit has revenge or quick draw. Like those are, I guess, the appeals to it. And it's fast, so maybe occasionally they'll let you dodge suffocate. But for the most part, this is going to be tough to make worth a card. It does last forever. Like, keep that in mind. It's permanently +2 attack, but I mean, that's not making it any harder to kill unless it has quick draw, right? Or is flying or something. So unless you're using it to like if you're using it to uptrade a revenge unit, that's not bad, but how many revenge units are actually in your deck? Like, I need a high density of quick draw and revenge units before I think about playing Threaten, or I have to be really, really aggressive. But yeah, that's a very narrow band there. It's not a whole lot of decks that want this card, I think. And if you do, you don't want much of it, and you can get it late in a pack.
For sure. I'm gonna put this as a D.
Yeah, let's go with D. And again, maybe it creeps up into the C-ish range in the right deck, but meh.
Okay, so on to something a little bit better than the streak that we were just working through. We have Amethyst Ring, the last of our cycle. It is a 3-cost relic, 3 to use, and it deals 1 damage to the opponent, and you gain 1 health. This is, unlike the other, this is closer to the Granite Ring in the sense that it fits into a very specific kind of deck. This is even more focused. Like, you really only want this in a Life Force deck. In a Life Force deck, this is actually pretty fine. Because, get into a board stall, and then you just activate this every turn. You're like, okay, I get like +3/+3 across, my various units. Do something, or I'm just going to kill you with this eventually. And, it helps stabilize you. There was one of my opponents that I played in draft who, like, this card won them the game. And then when they played it, I was kind of like, okay, fine, whatever. But, looking back at it, like, this card carried them hard.
Yeah. Yeah, again, you need the Life Force cards first. You should be taking the Life Force cards before the enablers.
Yes.
But this isn't a terrible enabler. It's not great. It turns out the Life Force deck is all about turning normally bad cards into good cards, because there's some crazy pushed Life Force cards that we've already talked about. So there's only one deck that wants this, really, and that's the Life Force deck. I don't think you should try and play this as like a control finisher or something like that idea. I think you play this literally as just a Life Force enabler, and it's decent in that role. It's slow, but the Life Force deck has plenty of time to be slow. So, again, this is kind of a dual grade where if you're in Life Force, this is probably a C+ or something like that, and in every other deck, it's an F.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. Sounds solid. We have another Life Force related card. This one actually does have the Life Force. Up next, it is the Cabal Slasher, which is a common, and it is a 1/3 for 3. And the Life Force ability is that whenever you gain life, it gains that much attack. The fact that this only has 3 health is a huge downside for it. Relative to the other ones that we looked at, the ones that gain both the health and the attack, it basically means that it still trades with the same stuff kind of throughout the whole game. Like, it doesn't get any better at trading up. If you're attacking with it, it's fine. In the sense, I would kind of value this in the same ballpark as something like a 3/3 for 3 or a 4/3 for 3 in a Life Force deck. And the fact that you don't want this anywhere else other than a Life Force deck makes me pretty hesitant to pick this early.
Yeah, I would not pick this early. This is not like the premier Life Force payoff card. It's more if you end up in Life Force, you'll happily play this card because, again, you want Life Force payoff cards, but this is kind of a payoff for deciding to move into Life Force. Like, okay, I get this Shadow Common that's unplayable in every other deck, but is playable or better than playable in my Life Force deck. So again, this is kind of a dual grading scenario where it's a bit better than, say, that 6-drop that made 1/1s, but it's nowhere near the level of the other 3-drop that's a 2/2 that keeps getting +1/+1. It's somewhere in between that range. And again, it's like a D- if you're not in Life Force, and if you are in Life Force, it's a C, something like that, C+.
Yeah, that all sounds good to me. That all sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
Cat Burglar up next. This is a 2/2/4/3.
It's a rare.
That has, yes, it is. It has Shadow Influence and it is deadly. Already 2/2 for 3 with deadly is like fine. It's kind of unexciting, but it's okay. The summon effect though has the potential to be a blowout, but I feel like this has less application in draft, and that is the enemy player discards a relic of your choice from their hand.
Yeah.
There aren't a ton of relics in draft. I mean, yeah, if you nab something like a ring, you're going to feel like a hero, but I think that on basis is close to just a 2/2 deadly for 3.
Yeah, with minor upside, but not reliable.
With minor upside.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm thinking C-.
Yeah, it's got deadly. It's a 2/2 deadly for 3. Yeah, I mean, C- is right there. The little upside might bump it to C, and if it ever actually hits, it'll feel like an A, but who knows how often that'll happen. So yeah, C- C sounds about right. Sweet art though, taking that crown of possibilities.
Yeah, I definitely like that one. So next card. This is a card that I actually, when I first saw this, my question was to some other people, I haven't asked you this yet. If this were in set 1 draft, would this be the best common pack 1 pick 1 in the set?
No, because Torch exists.
No? You think that the Torch is better than this?
Yeah, Torch costs 1 and is fast. This isn't fast.
Sure. Okay. So you think that would be the better one?
Yeah.
I think
there's probably a couple
really
others
close,
too,
though.
but this is good. This is a very good common.
So
anyway, let's talk about it. It's extract.
Yes. Yeah. But like I was just kind of putting it as a baseline. Okay. So extract. I didn't even tell what it does.
Yeah.
Extract. 3 cost, double shadow influence. It's a lifesteal spell at common, and it deals 3 damage. And then you get the scry text on it too. This is an excellent card in the current set, especially in the Life Force deck, obviously. But you don't even need to be in there in order for you to want to, pick this early and play it in all your shadow decks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is just it's just good. It gains you life. It gives you some card information / card quality. It's gonna kill something, or it can go face. It can do that if you want to kill your opponent. If you're into that kind of thing, it has life steal, so Life Force enable. It kind of just does everything. This is not a card that I have to give a split grade on. If you're in Life Force or not in Life Force, you're happy to have this. It doesn't kill everything though, and again, it's not fast. So minor squibbles there, I guess. But as far as common removal goes, this is real good. I'll still give it like a B. Yeah.
Yeah, B sounds fine. Like, it's an efficient removal spell. We're not going to go crazy with it, but definitely going to be an all-star in a lot of situations. And for my bet right now, I have it as the best common in the set.
Okay. I'm not sure if I'm quite there on extract to go the best common. Double Shadow is also an issue, but it's very good. It's up there. I'll take it over most commons for sure.
A card that is not the best common in the set is our little elf explorer friend of Lethrai Memory Keeper. Very strange name.
Yeah.
It is a 4/1 for 3 with 1 shadow influence. We are not a fan of low health units on this podcast for limited. So this is a worst like higher adept or like the
4/1 for 3. D-. I don't like his face either. I don't like
That's where you got the. He earned that minus from his bad name and his bad face.
Yeah. There we
go.
I'll keep no memories of him. I will forget him as soon as I can.
Okay, how about you take us on to the next one?
All right, we got Means to an End. This is a legendary relic. Costs 3 Shadow Influence. And has Life Force. When you gain life, discard that many cards from your deck. Then, if you have no cards in your deck, sacrifice Means to an End to deal 25 damage to the enemy player. Ooh. So this reads, if you deck yourself, you win the game? Like in how many games? The majority?
Most games,
Okay,
yeah.
so you've got to deck yourself, and you do that by gaining life. So this is a Life Force card. And call me crazy, but I think this is worth building around.
I think this is too, because it's something that, like, I mean, you know, like you're starting with a 45 card deck.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to like gain, you know, between draw steps and anything, like you have to gain like what 20 life over the course of the game, and you're probably there.
Yeah, I mean that's assuming you get it out early. I mean, what if you just draw it later on because your Life Force deck and the game's going long anyways? It might not even take that many triggers, and it's not every time you gain life like discard one card. It depends on how much life you gain. Like if you gain 5 life, you discard 5 cards from the top of your deck, and you also don't need to always gain the life. Like if you just deck yourself, you have to gain life on the final trigger to kill them. Like, you have to deck yourself with the life gain, right? Yeah, it's part of the Life Force trigger. So it's not just deck yourself, win the game. That's the tricky part.
Okay. That is tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you gain life, discard that many cards, then if you have zero...
It's a then clause. It's not a separate clause. It's not if you have no cards in your deck, sacrifice. So this is really tricky part.
This is really hard to give a straight up grade to. I wanted to see the memes go off. This seems like a really fun card, but I mean, if we're giving it a truthful, honest, real grade, this has got to be an F.
I'm giving it an A+. I'm giving it
A+ F split card.
Yeah, we'll split the difference there, but I'm giving it. If I see it, I'm drafting it, and I'll report back to you about how bad my deck was.
Send me the screenshots all day long, people. Send me the screenshots for Means to an End.
Yeah.
Now we got Skeeter.
Skeeter. All right. This is a Common Behrman. You'll find them everywhere. 3 cost, 1 Shadow Influence required. It's a 1/2 flying lifesteal. So, all right, it plays a role in a few different decks, right? And obviously in Life Force, it can just gain you a life every turn if they don't have any 2/2 flyers. Like even if they have a 1/4 flyer or something, it's gonna bounce off and still gain you that 1 point of life that'll trigger Life Force. And in say Argenport decks or whatever, it's a good target to put weapons on. It's a flying lifesteal unit. We've seen that, and a lot of other games normally attached to either flying endurance lifesteal or flying Aegis lifesteal. But missing out on one of those keywords, I think you can still live with that if you're equipping it up and just winning the game. So it plays a role in a myriad of different decks. Seems not going to excel in any of them, but it's got evasion and got potential. So ultimately, still just a C probably, but in certain decks that'll get bumped up.
Yeah, this is one of the enablers that I really like for the Life Force decks, because it is something that you can so consistently just like pack in for one. You know, even if they have something like a 1/5 blocker, like a Tower Top Patrol, you're able to gain that life. You know, it really shines there, but even then, it only goes up to like a C+ or something like that.
Yeah.
Sorrow's Shroud. This is a bit of a strange one that it is a 3 cost weapon, not relic weapon, just a weapon.
Yeah.
That has one shadow influence and has a 1/2 stats, and when the wielder dies, you gain health equal to its health.
Yeah.
This is just not good enough, right?
Right. This is like Skeeter in a way in that it can play a role in different decks. Like in Life Force, you can gain life, or in a weapons deck, it can be a weapon. It's just bad at those roles. Like, yeah, it can help in those roles, but it's just not very good at either of them. Like, it's not very good at being a weapon. It's not very good at being a Life Force enabler. So I really don't want this in my deck, but it can sometimes make the cut as the last playable in my deck, which I guess means it's a D, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
D seems where I would put it, but definitely sort of thing you want to avoid. Now we have Spur On.
Yeah.
This is a 3-cost spell with Revenge. Give one of your units +1 attack and unblockable this turn.
Ugh.
If I had some really cool infiltrate cards, this seems like an interesting card to put on some with, like you said, to put with some of them. Like I would have to be at like the level of Argent Point Ringmaster or the Direwood Beast Caller or something like that for me to actually be interested in it. The average deck I don't think wants this.
Man, it's depending on the deck you're in, you could actually really need the evasion for a finisher. But yeah, I agree. The average deck I don't think wants this. This is just, it's pushing through damage in spots. You'll eventually get it a second time, which could be enough. But there's a few cards we'll get to later that if you have a couple copies of, you will want to pay attention to unblockable effects. The card I'm referencing is Bone Picker or Cabal Slasher, actually. Both of those. Like sometimes in the Zenon Life Force deck, you just, again, you stall out the board and you just need a way to finish the game. And if you have something with 25 attack, which isn't that weird to see, you can just spur it on and win. So, it's a very specific role. It doesn't do anything in the meantime until it actually wins you the game, except, as you said, in like an infiltrate deck. So there's a couple decks that want it, but it's not a card I'm ever going to pick highly or go out of my way to pick. It's more if I end up seeing it late in the pack and get it, I'll grab it and throw it in if I need it. So at the end of the day, that's a D plus or something like that. But in certain decks, maybe it gets bumped up from there.
I like that rating. Now, what do you think about Trigger Happy?
Trigger Happy is a 3-cost fast spell at uncommon, and 1 shadow influence required, and your units get quick draw this turn. So you can technically cast it on your opponent's turn, and it'll do basically nothing unless you're giving your unit quick draw so that it doesn't die to a particular fire spell. So you're mostly using this aggressively. And it can be good if your units already have a lot of attack, but it's not actually ever making your units bigger. This kind of reminds me of almost Copperhall Blessing, which was like the one-sided, your units don't take damage, but your opponent's units do. Where
feels worse than that, though.
If you're like at big board parity and they block a bunch of things and your units are just as big as theirs, it's good. But if not, it's just bad. It's just really bad. Like you're both going wide and going tall somehow. Like that's when quick draw is good. I just don't. I don't get it. I don't want to play this card. What about you?
I do not want to play it, and let's D minus.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
D minus.
throw it to.
It's not quite an F, but it's close.
Cabal Bludgeoner is up next. This is a 2/3 for 4 that gets +2/+2 while wielding a weapon.
All right.
4/5 for 4, as I said earlier, play that all day long. 2/3 for 4 is a pretty bad fail state. You also have to have the weapon on this too. It's not like a unit that you control has a weapon. It is this unit has a weapon.
This is where Emerald Ring is insane.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
It definitely works. But it's
right.
I'm really worried about this fail state.
Oh yeah. This is not a card that's going in the vast majority of shadow decks. If you are not pairing up with fire or justice, good luck fitting this in. I realize there are some primal weapons or whatever, but it's just not happening. This is how we were talking about Cabal Slasher as a shadow card you might get late because you're in Life Force. This is a shadow card you'll get late if you're in like Shadow Weapons Matter, and it'll at least be okay, maybe never great, but it'll at least be playable in your deck and unplayable in every other deck. Yeah.
If you do have them, I think that I would you can pick them as C minus or C into your in like kind of the nut deck, for that, but it's still never going to be amazing.
Right, it'll become merely playable. Like a 2/3 for 4 is basically unplayable in every other deck. Like it has stats and you can cast it. Like okay, sure, but you never. It's generally going to be worse than a sigil. So, yeah.
So I'm gonna put this at a D.
Yeah, it's a D, and if you have a bunch of weapons and you need a unit, this will make the cut in that deck then, and you'll be cool with it.
Cripple. Give an enemy unit -3, -2. This is a useful thing to have, I'm sure, if you're trying to combat, revenge units. Because I think that it means that if once they come back, they just die again anyway immediately, which is fine. But this is a bit slow and clunky and low impact for what I'm looking for removal.
Yeah, it's not fast, so you can't use this as some weird reverse combat trick where you shrink an opponent's unit and then block it and kill it. So it's 4 cost, slow speed. At least if it doesn't kill it, it shrinks it. But I think this reads mostly as kill a flyer or small annoying revenge unit or small annoying deadly unit, like those sorts of things. It's never going to kill necessarily something you care about unless it's a tiny evasive unit, and that's not a super efficient rate. But it's still some removal, some reaction, interaction, just not very good.
Yeah, I'm gonna start this at a C-.
Yeah, that sounds right on the nose for now.
Cool.
C-.
We have a Hate Cleaver up next.
Hate. We got a rare relic weapon here that costs 4 double shadow. And it has 3 attack and 2 armor. So, sort of a Cario without the whole Warcry thing and for 1 more. But in shadow, okay, it's going to kill some things. It's about Cripple level already, right? But it has life force. When you gain life, Hate Cleaver gets +1/+1. So it's gaining armor and gaining attack when you gain life. That can get out of control, I guess. I mean, if you have a lot of defensive units in front of it and you're gaining life, the ceiling for this card is absurd, and the floor is not exciting, but kind of acceptable at least. I mean, it's not that far off of Magma Javelin as a base. I mean, the difference between 3 and 4 is quite a bit, but is this a rare worth build? Is this a reason to jump into Life Force right away? I don't know about that, but again, it can work in a weapons deck or a Life Force deck. That's kind of cool. Or even in a not Life Force deck, you can have random lifesteal units around, and it's just incidentally getting larger. I don't know. I think it's good enough to play it. I just am skeptical that it'll be a bomb in draft.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you get +2/+2 on this, you're very happy with it, and that's really not that much to ask in a dedicated Life Force deck. I mean, yes, it's going to have some games that is just a 3/2, but that's just not that bad.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with this at B-, because I think that the ceiling is pretty appreciable, and the fail state is never going to be embarrassing.
Right, because an actual 3/2 weapon for 4 is probably, just like we said with Cripple, a C-, and I think the upside here is enough to bump it up a full letter grade, just because I've seen the Life Force deck in action, and I don't think it's a stretch to say this could take over a game. So,
yes.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. B-.
Memory Dredger. Tell me about it.
All right. Memory Dredger is awesome. It is a rare 4 cost double shadow influence 3/4 flyer. So 3/4 flyer for 4. Already really good. That's really good. I'm super happy to play that. And it has, when Memory Dredger hits the enemy player, play a unit with cost 2 or less from your void. So again, this is an infiltrate. This is every time it hits, you get this effect. So if you got a 2 cost unit in your void, it's coming back to play whenever you hit your opponent to, block again or whatever it was doing. If you had an infiltrate unit earlier, that's coming back and it's going to be awesome or whatever. But you're not playing this just with infiltrate. You're just playing this card because it's a 3/4 flyer for 4 with obscene value attached to it, because why not?
Yeah, this card seems sick. I love it. If you can keep the skies clear with your other shadow removal or whatever, it'll be do absolute work on the opponent. Having this in something like an infiltrate deck, imagine getting back buff Lethrai Rangers with this thing. It can do a lot of filthy stuff, or even stuff just it'll take Direfang Spider a little bit higher, because that's really annoying.
Yeah.
If you're trying to race a time deck and you keep on playing these deadly units, this I don't think it quite gets up into the A range because it has some pretty important deck building restrictions.
I don't think it has any deck building restrictions, just because it's a 3/4 flyer for 4.
Oh yeah, that's fair. I mean, like I was talking about deck building restrictions in terms of like the ceiling, like 3/4 for 4. If that was just it, I would put that at like a B.
Yeah.
You know, so this is B plus because it has this nice thing.
Okay.
In the right deck, though, I think that this can very easily feel like an A card.
Yeah, I can see B plus. I'm gonna go with A minus because he's got a nice smile.
Yeah, friendly looking guy. Mm-hmm. Relentless Gorehorn. This is a 3/3 for 4 with 1 shadow influence, and it has revenge. And it has summon, give your other minotaurs get +2 attack. That is not this turn, this is forever. This actually almost seems like a reasonable build around to me.
Oh yeah.
3/3 revenge for 4 is a pretty okay starting spot. We've said before that the revenge we don't really quite know where to evaluate just yet, but I gotta believe that that's pretty close to good enough.
Yeah.
And if you're getting +4/+4 off of +4/+0 on your other units, this is great.
Yeah. Now Minotaurs are basically all in just Argenport. So yes. I would say if you're in Argenport, and a lot of the good cards are just Minotaurs. It's not like you're putting bad cards in your deck. You're just putting Minotaurs. And a 3/3 Revenge for 4 is already something that's going to make the cut in your deck every time. Like, it's not like you're going to have something better to cut. Like, I've played Back Alley Bouncer plenty, and this is way better than that.
Yeah. So
I would say, like, in non-Argenport Minotaur decks, this is maybe just, a C or something. But if you're actually in Argenport, like, this approach is like B like range, honestly, like a full letter grade. But yeah. I think ultimately I'll split the difference and I'll go B minus just for the Minotaur love. But sweet card.
I'll definitely buy all of that. Exactly as you said it. Another tribal card, Savage Stranger, 4 cost, 1 shadow influence, 3/3. At the end of your turn, strangers get +1 attack.
Yeah.
That means that this is a Back Alley Bouncer as a base.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can give your opponents strangers +1 attack as well, which is a downside. But if you're in a strangers deck, this seems absolutely spectacular. Not quite at the level as battle tested stranger, but very, very solid.
Yep. It just comes down as a 4/3 for 4. It is awkward if your opponent has a stranger because that stranger can then block this one. It seems like that's almost a design intention there. But yeah, if you have your other strangers though, those also become 3/2s and super relevant. So yeah, I think this card's really solid. I don't know if that puts it into like B minus territory though. It still might just be a C plus. I'm not sure. If you're in strangers, obviously the card's insane. But outside of that, it's just a 3/3 for 4. It becomes a 4/3 for 4 and keeps growing, but only once a turn. And has some downside. Yeah, I think I'm going to just go with C plus to start with this card.
Yep, C plus seems like a good place to begin with it, but we'll have to see how...
If you're in Strangers, this card is nuts. That card, like, no doubt about it.
Yeah, also really good with, we'll get into some of the, Minotaur Lighthorn. Lighthoof, rather. This is a really good combo with that, too.
Sure.
If that's what the game ends up being about. Now, we have the Zenon Fanatic. This is a 4-costable Shadow Influence 3/1. Life Force at the end of your turn, deal damage to the enemy player equal to the health you gained this turn. I am pretty unexcited by a 3/1 for 4. And sure, this is a finisher in that kind of deck, but I think that the good Life Force decks, you're able to just win on board. You don't have to do it through this sort of back sort of way. So I'm not too excited about this card.
I do like that this is a finisher that doesn't have to attack in the Life Force deck.
Sure.
So like that's appealing because, again, it's going to sound like a broken record, but that deck really does stall out the board. It's kind of absurd. So that's nice, like, to just have a finisher that can just sit there and never have to attack and kills your opponent, especially because it's usually surrounded by defensive units. But it's certainly not the best Life Force payoff card. But if you're in the Life Force deck, you want this. And if you're not, I don't think this is a reason to, like, move in. Like, I think, say, the 3/3 in time is probably a better payoff, like, just getting a larger unit. But if you're in Life Force, you're going to happily take this and drain your opponent to death. But that's literally just in Life Force. You're not playing this in any other deck because it's a 3-1 for 4. So because of all of that added up, it's probably, again, it's kind of a dual grade situation where not Life Force, D-, in Life Force, C, something like that.
I'm just going to give this a D+. I'm not excited about this card.
Yeah. All right.
Minotaur Lighthuff is the one I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
This is actually a really strong shadow card.
This card's won me a lot of games so far.
Yes. So this is a 4/5 for 5. At its base, like, that's certainly not bad. It's a slightly better Jodan Warrior. Clearly, you were not excited about that card, so it's not a great standard. But, as it's fine, I would say that would be like a D+ kind of card. Just that. But the summon ability is very powerful. Another unit is unblockable this turn. That means that in your giant board stall, you're able to send your, 20 5/3, Zenon cultist or whatever, across the finish line, or other like giant monsters that you've created. Works well with the Argiport too if you're doing something like assembling a monster using weapons, etc.
Yeah.
And the body by itself is just totally fine. Mm-hmm. So this is a very, very solid uncommon for Shadow.
Yep, it's good in every Shadow deck you can think of. Feln, Zenon, Stone Scar, Argentport, no matter what, they're either going to have a small unit with Infiltrate you want to push through, or a very large unit with a bunch of weapons and you want to kill your opponent, or you have a Bone Picker, which we'll talk about later, that's just massive. And the other thing to note here is that it says another unit is unblockable this turn, not one of your units. You can target your opponent's units and pop an Aegis or something like that. It also has that utility built in. It just does a lot, and there's not a huge cost to what it does. A 4/5 for 5, totally acceptable. I'm gonna give this a B. Seems about right.
B sounds solid.
Yeah.
Obrok the Feaster is up next.
Oh, baby.
This is a 5-cost triple shadow 7/7 flyer with revenge
and legendary.
Important, very important. At the start of your turn, sacrifice a unit. That is a very serious downside for a very serious card. If you keep this, if you're able to feed this thing, you're going to win the game very quickly. Draft a deck with 20 units, and I think that you are going to be very happy to have this in your deck, even if it dies. Getting it back as a 7/7 revenge, style later on in the game, how is your opponent going to beat that? It does require to up your unit count a little bit, but this is a solid A. Yeah,
occasionally it'll do nothing, but okay. The upside is you win the game. I like that. Yeah, maybe it's an A-, or you could maybe talk me into a B+, but you actually can't because you can't. The triple shadow is a bit of a drawback here too, but yeah, the card's just awesome. I've actually been trying it out a bit more in Constructed lately, and it's a bit better there, but it's awesome in Draft too. It's just a huge friggin' dragon. Just not much to it.
Yep. Now let us talk about the Umbran Thirster. Okay. This is a 2/4 for 5, 1 Shadow Influence, and that's already kind of mediocre. But as Life Force, when you gain health, Umbran Thirster gets +1 attack and flying. That's permanent. This means that the first instance of life gain is worth quite a lot. Mm-hmm. The other ones afterwards are still worth something, but that first one is worth so much to be able to get her airborne. Pretty good in the Life Force decks.
This card is great in the Life Force decks.
Oh yeah, you really liked it there?
Really good. Yeah, this is one of the big common payoffs because, again, you don't have a lot of flyers. Flyers are valuable, and yeah, this thing can turn into a 7/4 flyer pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's I can definitely see the appeal to it. I don't think make sure that you have half a dozen Life Force enablers in your deck to put this in there, because 2/4 for 5 is embarrassing. Yeah. But I think it's pretty easy to make it work.
Yeah, it kind of does an impression, but a much better impression, at least in the Life Force deck, of that one primal 5-drop that was a 1/1 flyer but kept growing. It's like that, but not fragile and terrible at the start. And then it just gets just can grow almost as quickly, if not faster. So this is another one of those, if you're in Life Force, you can get these like kind of mid to late in a pack, and it's a huge payoff because this card is just excellent in the Life Force deck. And again, if you're not in Life Force, this card is just not something you want to play, really, ever, unless you have a bunch of Lifesteal units or something.
So I'm going to give it a C on balance, but it's just kind of the understanding that it has a pretty wide range within that.
Yeah. Again, these Life Force cards are hard to really grade just because of how it works. But yeah, maybe Life Force cards don't have to be just Zenon, but I feel like they do. So maybe as the format evolves, we'll find out that's not true.
Direwolf Prowler up next.
All right.
5 for 6 in double shadow influence. Summon. The summon ability is basically Devour. Yeah. But I'll read it out. Summon, you may sacrifice another unit to draw 2 cards. That seems like a great package. And 5 for 6, obviously that's not exciting, but there's usually a unit around by that stage of the game, like a stranger or, some token or something like that that's been generated that you can use to get that that draw 2 ability. And Shadow doesn't have a ton of card advantage, or card draw effects, and then this is a great way to do that. Yeah,
this card it's the downside of it, or the worst case scenario, is that it's a 5 for 6. Okay, that's acceptable. And if you've got any kind of unit you don't mind throwing away, or maybe a revenge unit that you don't mind coming back again later, just sacrifice that and draw 2 cards. It's not quite Devour in certain decks because it doesn't have the incidental life gain, but I'll take the 5/5 body. That seems like an okay upgrade to me. So yeah, just a really, really solid card. Does that put it into B range, or is it just a B- still?
I'm happy with B- for it. I had to get a sense of how the sacrifice deck feels in the format now that the support is a little bit lower. But definitely a card that I'm going to be wanting including in all of my shadow decks in at least some number.
This next card, I can assure you, is not going to be a B-. Slime Spitter Slug is here. It is a rare beast indeed. 6 cost, double shadow influence, 6/4. So not a great body up front, but there is some text here. Summon. Each flying unit, so yours as well, but also your opponent's, gets -1/-1 for each of your units. So if you've got 4 units in play, every flyer in play gets -4/-4. All right? And then he has just a static ability. This isn't part of the summon ability. When an enemy unit dies, you gain 1 life, and Slime Spitter Slug gets +1/+1. There is a lot going on here, and it's all really good. This might be the best rare in the set.
Yep, I can see that.
I had the pleasure of drafting this, and it is absolutely insane. If you see this in a pack, take it. It is an A, maybe an A+. I know it doesn't have evasion or flying, but it just wrecks everything. It can be a Life Force enabler. You don't need to be in Life Force, though. It just keeps getting bigger. It kills flyers. It just does so much crazy stuff. I'll give it an A+. This thing's just insane.
I saw LSV draft this when he had a chance to draft on stream for a journal, and it messed some people up. So I am totally behind A+. And the fact that it also synergizes with Life Force stuff.
It's just dumb. Yeah, it's so dumb. The card, I was like so impressed with it in draft, and I'm like, I might try and tinker with this and construct it and see what I can do with it.
I've been thinking about that too.
I'm looking into some things with it already. So.
Cabal Rogue up next. Not nearly the same category. This is a 5/1 for 7. The difficulty with 5/1s, of course, is that they get blocked by anything. But this one doesn't. It is a unblockable 5/1 for 7. And 1 shadow influence is an uncommon. I guess this is a solution to a stalled board if you don't have any other like bombs, top end, tool to that effect. Like you have all of this like board stall potential, but nothing to close the game. Yeah. Like this does it, but at the same time, it's really fragile for a 7 drop. I think that puts it as a D+.
Yeah, D+. If you need a finisher, it can hopefully get the job done, but again, it can't really block. Well, it can block, and it'll probably kill what it's blocking, but it's not going to help you against flyers or anything like that. It dies to everything, but at least it doesn't die in combat. So I guess you got that going for you. But yeah, not what I'm looking for if I'm looking for a finisher. But I guess if I somehow draft a control deck and this is what I can get, I'll take it.
Inspire Obedience is a 7-cost double shadow in kill spell, but you also get a little bonus to your units this turn. You get 1+1 attack, and it is just a regular spell, not a fast spell. This is one of those necessary evil type cards. If you have found yourself in a shadow deck that has fairly limited removal, like, I guess you play this, but it's certainly not the sort of thing that you're excited by, and you definitely do not want this in any aggressive decks.
You might have to play this in aggressive decks, if I'm being honest. Like, it's hard to hit the playable counts sometimes, and this will easily make the cut, I think, every time you draft it. Like, that's just my impression of the format so far. Don't underestimate the effects of that +1 attack for your units that turn. Like, I've been hit by this a few times, and I've been slowly moving up my initial draft rating impression. Like, it's just, the format's slow. This thing's been more impressive than I thought, which doesn't make it, impressive. It's still a 7-cost removal spell, but it's at least okay to acceptable to play. I still don't want to play 2 of them, but I wouldn't be surprised if I end up in a deck where I have to. So ultimately, C-, maybe C. It's hard to find unconditional removal.
I was going to say C-, and the second one is a D-. Yeah. Would be my rating for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely gets worse in multiples. 7 cost is still a lot.
Sleepless Night is up next. This is one of the most bizarre draw spells. Has anybody had a chance to play this and know whether it goes into your deck after the drawing is done? I'm sure, right?
Yes, that's what we've been told, anyways.
Okay. So Sleepless Night, 8 cost, draw 4. Well, discard your hand, and then draw 4, and has Revenge. So it's a draw 8, but over a weird turn sequence. Yeah. This is a really weird play pattern.
And also, when you draw it again, you have to cast it right away, and it discards whatever is in your hand if you haven't cast all your spells yet. Like, there's some weird stuff, but it's at least going to draw you 4 cards, and it might draw you way more than that.
Yeah, this is a weird set of conditions and stuff. I am worried about how it's going to feel in some instances, but if I just kind of have a bunch of, if I'm going long in my shadow deck, then I don't think it could go that bad if I have one of these.
Yeah, no, this seems really powerful in the late game. It's just, it's also an 8-cost card that has 0 board impact, but if you survive to the next turn, your chances of winning the game have dramatically gone up. It's just, you have to get to that point, and that's not always an easy thing to do.
No, it is not. I'm gonna put this at I don't really know. I'm gonna put it as C to begin with. This is it's really weird in definitely it matters the speed of the format is too, because how many games can you get away with an 8-drop that doesn't affect the board? But I can any mid-range attrition battle. I don't see how you lose once you've cast this card.
Yeah, this is a card I want to play far more than I probably should want to play.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Have to try it out in order to get a good feeling for it. But that is it for the mono faction cards. How are we feeling?
I'm feeling like I'm going to take a little bathroom break, and then we're going to finish off with all these awesome multi-faction cards. How about that?
That sounds good. You take a break. I'm going to go chat it up with the chat.
All right. Tell them they're all beautiful. I'll be back in a sec.
You're all beautiful. How's it going, my beautiful chat? Hello, hello.
Okay, I'm back. Looks like I didn't miss anything important in chat.
Yeah, I'm just inspiring some copy pasta.
Oh yeah, we got some instigator. Do we have? What was the one from? Is it the crown command? Which is that command? That dumb one. Might be crown. Can't remember. Oh yeah, it's crown. All right.
Yeah.
That was a fun day. That was a fun day. That's a good one.
Okay. So someone in chat was asking what our overall opinion was on the shadow cards. I felt personally like some of the stuff in the middle was like there were a lot of cards I was like, I don't think I want this. I don't think I want this one either.
Yeah.
Like just some low impact kind of chaff. So I'm worried. I'm really worried about like the Argent Port decks as a result of this.
Yeah, it feels like Argenport's going to get largely carried by like it feels like Shadow. You're never really incentivized to go into Shadow. It's more always going to be like a role player in other decks.
Yeah.
Like, oh, Marksman can go in like as a good weapon target, or oh, if you're I mean, Extract's a good card, but a lot of it's Skeeter is an enabler in certain cards, but like there's not a lot of cards that are like, oh, I want to be Shadow because of this card, right? There's not really any commons that are pushing you to be Shadow. It just feels like it's always a role player for another deck. The removal is Extract and then an expensive 7 spell and Cripple. Like, okay, Extract's great, and the rest kind of is meh. And I think that's why I'm a little down on Extract. Is like, I take these Extracts and then I'm like, well, I kind of have to be like Life Force now, where I don't know what. It's kind of weird. So
yeah, it's not like set 1 where we had Suffocate, Annihilate, and Death Strike.
It's just like you can get shadow packs where it's like, there's 3 commons in this pack. Oh, it's Fallen Oni, Swear Vengeance, Toctic.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Oh, my uncommon payoffs are Trigger Happy and Spuron. Like, it's just there's some bad stuff. But then I've had drafts where like I actually had a draft where I got a last pick Minotaur Lighthoof. Last pick.
Okay, that's.
I realize it's early in the format and people like might not be good at evaluating cards, but like, how did 11 people pass it? I don't know, but yeah, weird stuff like that's been happening. So it's just early to know. But if you pick Slime Spitter Slug, you're Shadow. Congrats.
So how about we start with